Hi everyone, this is Pradeep from Sydney. It is midnight of Saturday and Sunday, the 6th and 7th of November, 12 a.m. to be precise. I'm delighted to welcome you to episode 16 of GCC. And for a start, let me mute everybody and please unmute yourself when you are going to be speaking. Just give me a sec. Let me unmute myself. Nandini, are you raising your hand?
No, sorry.
That's
No.
all right. That's all right. So, coming back on track, wish you a very, very happy good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and whatever it is in your part of the day. We once again get you a delightful set of speakers today. We have some fabulous people from US, we have some fabulous people from India, and of course you got some very special people from Australia, which is me, because there is nobody else at midnight joining in. But without further ado, let me kick off, and our first speaker of the day is Nandani Trivedi, जिसको हम प्यार से प्रोफेसर नंदनी त्रिवेदी बुलाते हैं. Nandini is 1981 graduate from IIT Delhi. And do you know, when I had a chat with her, I mean, what do I say? When we started discussing what she was doing in physics about atoms, electronics, and quantum materials, her face started glowing up. There was a different Nandini altogether. But jokes apart, let me first congratulate Nandini as being recognized as a distinguished alumni awardee this particular year in 2021. So please give a round of applause to Nandini on that score.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with this, let's kick off the journey. And what did Nandini do after she left IIT Delhi? We know that she airlifted herself to the US, but let me not steal the thunder. Hey Kalpen, can you please mute yourself? And let me not steal Nandini's thunder. Let me first ask her, Nandini, is it fair enough to say that physics is your first love of life?
I wouldn't say that. I would say it's a balance with physics and my wonderful family. That has been, it's this balance that has brought me the greatest joy.
So you have stolen my thunder, because I was going to ask you then how is your husband coping with your first love, But I don't have any such comment.
He is very much part of my first love.
So good. So tell us.
And I did meet him. I did meet him in IIT in a physics class. So that is also its really? Own story.
Is he also in IIT Delhi?
Yes.
Oh, fabulous. Then we must.
But he was in electrical engineering. So
what's his name? Obviously, he's some Trivedi, but what is his name?
No, he is not. You are assuming that I would change my name. I did not.
Love it.
His name is Mohit Randeria.
So after this session, you must connect him with me, because I would love to get him also into the GCC. We've got quite a few couples, where both husband and wife are from IIT Delhi, or for that matter from different IITs. But now let's go across to Nandini. Nandini, what happened after 1981 time that you graduated from IIT Delhi?
Okay, so I basically went to the US to do a PhD in physics, and then typically in physics, you still need more training as a postdoctoral researcher. So I did a couple years of that. And then I was a scientist at a national lab, Argonne National Lab. And then my life took a different turn. I came back to India to the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Bombay, where we were there for about 10 years. And then we decided to come back to the US. So currently I'm a professor at the Ohio State University. Yeah, so that's been my trajectory.
So it's actually very interesting because you've oscillated back and forth between India and the US. Now, where did you go for your PhD? Which university did you do your PhD from?
I was at Cornell University in New York.
And the postdoctoral, was that also at
So
Cornell?
my postdoctoral research was at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and at State University of New York, Stony Brook. So 3 years of postdoctoral research.
And was physics always your choice? Like, did you kind of want to make a career in physics right from the time you joined IIT Delhi?
Yes, very much so. I started, I used to generally like science when I was in school. And I liked biology, chemistry. I didn't make distinctions between them. I just loved the idea of discovering things. And I had such wonderful experiences in school. I grew up in Assam. And so we had plenty of frogs hopping around, and we would take them to school and dissect them. I had wonderful teachers who would give me little bits of chemicals. So I was able to bring them, and my parents worked.
Raju, can you please mute yourself? Can I please ask everybody to mute themselves when they are not speaking? Back to you. Sorry, Nandani.
Yeah, so I had a lot of adventures as a kid, and I was hooked on science. And then when I came to IIT, I was always keen on physics, but I didn't, in my first semester, actually, I did really badly in physics and math. Those were the two subjects I got a C in. And I remember being devastated. That was a very important, sort of a time when I had to have a dialogue with myself of whether I was cut out to do physics. It was a time of very deep questioning because you know how fixated we are on grades at that age. But that summer, I read a beautiful book by Feynman, and he talks about a phenomena, which is a quantum phenomena, where an electron is a wave and how you can detect this wave through an interference experiment. And it was so beautiful that I decided, okay, come what may, this is what I'm going to follow. And in a way, even today, that's exactly what I'm doing, seeing the power of quantum mechanics in different manifestations in materials.
See, I love what you're talking about. And why I love it? Because I can clearly see the dichotomy between your thinking and my thinking. As for one, people always ask me that, did you want to become an engineer? I said, what nonsense. I just sat for all the exams, and wherever I got in, I just joined. That's number one. Number two, quantum physics was such a subject, man, when we had a final exam, you will not believe 3/4 of the class took medical certificates. So, but jokes apart, I am actually loving you talk about quantum mechanics and quantum materials, because the way you described to me in our chat a couple of weeks back, it really got me thinking. And I want you to tell this group over here that why, when we talk in terms of the metaverse, when we talk in terms of the futuristic thinking, why is quantum computing so important, and what does quantum materials have to do with that?
Yeah. So I think one very important aspect, because I know people here are from diverse fields, and what is important, I find, is that there are just a growth of, or like an nucleation of new ideas, and how that idea then takes form and becomes like you can do an experiment on a tabletop, and then it becomes all the way to a technology, and then that technology can come back and fuel more ideas. So you can see that right now in the growth of quantum computation or quantum information. And right now, this is a big growth area, and it's drawing from people in science and mathematics, computer science, engineering, all across the board. And the reason for this is up to now, our computers have used just like a magnetic moment, which can point up or down. So that's a 0 or a 1. And using just lots of these magnetic moments, you can encode information. And imagine the amount you can encode.
Every morning.
Hey, just a
Every
second.
morning,
Rekha, please, can you mute yourself?
So this is called a bit, a single bit. But imagine how much you could encode if you had the information, that vector living on a sphere. So it's not just pointing up or down, but it can point at any angle on the sphere. And that is called a qubit. And that's where people want to build a computer, a quantum computer using these qubits. And there are issues right now about how this qubit can become, you may think it is at a particular angle, but it is interacting with the environment. So it can start dithering and you can lose that information. So a challenge is, can you make a qubit that is protected from the environment? And some of my research is on these new kinds of qubits called topological qubits, where because of a mathematical concept called topology, the local variations don't matter, and globally you can protect that information. So this is an example of something. There is a technology growing on qubits, but there are new ideas developing on how to make not just better qubits, but like a completely different paradigm for qubits, which is this topological idea. And so that's one thing, I'm excited about, which is at the fundamental level contributing. And the other part where my research comes in, there are many platforms on which qubits are being made. You might ask, what is the material that makes the qubit? It turns out to be one of the sets of materials being used are superconductors. And this itself is a fascinating phenomenon. I'll tell you in one sentence. And my research for decades has been on this topic. Essentially, if you take aluminum wire and pass current through it, it will develop some resistance and become hot. But if you take the same aluminum and cool it below some temperature, we call it the transition temperature, which is quite low for aluminum. But below that temperature, this material becomes a perfect conductor. So it will pass current with zero resistance. And this zero resistance state it has tremendous applications, as you can imagine. You can use it to pass for all your transmission lines, except the temperature at which this happens is too low. So my research has been on trying to figure out, again, not just new materials, but whole new paradigms by which the transition temperature will be close to room temperature. So we are still not there. We are kind of about, we are close, but still not there. But anyway, that has been one other big development. And now to connect with the qubits, essentially these superconductors, if you make them into a tiny island, that island becomes that sphere I was talking about on which the qubit will live. So let me stop here. I've kind of given you some flavor of materials and qubits, and also topological qubits, and why we need them for ultimately building a quantum computer. By the way, such a quantum computer, not with topological qubits, but just simple superconducting qubits, has already been built by Google using about 50 qubits. So this is already on a very accelerated path to invention and discovery.
This is absolutely fabulous, the kind of opportunities it opens up, and to think that you are at the cutting edge of all of this, it's so fascinating, Now, I also want to pick up that when you were back in India, how do you compare the nature of research which is happening in India as what is happening in US? What do you see as the differences? What do you see as the advantages or disadvantages between the tools, kind of a thing? Some comparative picture.
Yeah. So I would say in India, the biggest advantage was the sort of education students are getting at the undergraduate level. So, I was at the premier science institute in India. The students were coming from IITs and ICERs, and their training was fantastic. And the research they did was also at the highest level, comparable to anywhere in the world at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. The differences I see is in collaborative research. So exactly what I described right now, I said Google has developed this quantum computer. It's how did Google do it? They hired one of the professors from a university, and Google put in a lot of money and really accelerated the building of the quantum computer. So the industries are very reluctant to put in money at the early stages. That's why fundamental research is so expensive. The only people who pay for fundamental research in India is the government. And in the US, it's also the government, National Science Foundation. And so, because there is a lot of risk factor. We are working on these ideas, but you don't know how they will pan out. And usually they do pan out on some longer time scale because we are all very inventive and we are all trying to be successful. So this is where I think if industry was to put in more partnership, it would be without any strings. That's the important thing. You can't be asking for quarterly reports. But then the difference in the US is there is a closer connection with industry. And so they were able to see the glimmerings of something coming out and were able to push it forward at an accelerated pace. So that's kind of broadly the difference.
So what I'm liking is that even when we are talking about fundamental research, there is a fair degree of industry academia collaboration which is happening. And what you found in the US was possibly more availability of resources and the private sector moving in pretty quickly to take advantage of these opportunities. So this is, but by the way, do you know that you got two of your batchmates in the session today? One is
Oh,
Sunil.
really?
Yes, you got Sunil Mishra. He is based in Boston, and
Hi.
you got Anil Maheshwari.
Hi.
He's
Nice
also
to meet. Yeah, nice to see you after, or at least Zoom see you after such a long time.
and
Nandini, how are you?
Hi.
I just watched your videos yesterday on your whatever the Columbus Museum presenting about the sort of popularization with this liquid nitrogen. Reminded me of memories of old time. I wish more professors did that. So great job, and also
Thank you.
congratulations on being fellow of AAS. Jagdish is the other person I know, I think, and it's a very big deal. So what a great job! Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I had
Anil.
a question. Thank you. And I had a question that I think Sunil and I were all talking about. Love has been working on this. Have you ever chance to meet with him, collaborate with him, and etc.?
No, not really collaborate with him. He's done some really important work on algorithms, quantum algorithms. So basically saying if there was a quantum computer, is it just going to do what a classical computer does faster, or can it do certain things way better? And that is where he has made a very significant contribution. So no, we haven't collaborated, but I do discuss the Grover algorithm when I teach the quantum information course. Yeah.
That is again great. And also, there are two people that I want to mention just now. One is a 1967 graduate, Abhay Oswal. He is also on the call today. He is also based somewhere in the US. I think he's in the Bay Area, but I'm not 100% sure. he's also working on, he's not working on this area, but he's working on storage batteries, and I can see, that there could be some potential, linkages somewhere. So happy to connect both of you over there. Another person
Yeah.
that I do want to mention, and with whom I was on a call today evening, are two people called Yogesh Andle and Vishnu Dusad. They are 1979 and 1980 batch graduates from IIT Delhi, but Vishnu's daughter was studying physics in the US. And when Vishnu mentioned to her daughter that we'll be having Nandini in the session, her daughters were going wild. So I wasn't aware that even physicists have this kind of an adulation. So it was beautiful to hear that. It was really lovely to hear that. And thank you so much, Vishnu and Yogesh, for mentioning this in our call today. So Nandini, it's been lovely to have this chat with you. What I do want to know is that how connected have you been back? Yes, you must be very much connected to your batchmates and to Kailash people and up and down kind of a thing. But how connected have you been with the IITD ecosystem, or for that matter with the Alumni Association in the last whatever number of years since you left IIT Delhi?
Yeah, that Pradeep has been a bit of a lacuna. I have not been connected at all with IIT. That's very unfortunate. And, I would, I wish at least when I was in TIFR, I had, come by and given some talks and so on. But somehow that didn't happen at that time. And I'm hoping in the next, I was very touched by this award I got. It brought back memories of what IIT actually meant to me. And, I felt some of these stories of my struggle, which I generally don't talk about. And, at least my daughter has told me, she was the first person who told me I should talk about this at one of the undergraduate forums. And I said, oh, no, I never talk about my grades. There's something I just hide. And she said, no, that was one of the most important motivating factors for me growing up. So I decided maybe I should bring it up just in case this is more of a factor for other people. So I'm hoping that just on talking more about the science and connecting with younger people, I could do some more talks with the IIT group. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that is why I have commenced work on trying to create a global platform where people can connect with each other on a different value basis. And what value proposition do you would like to see from IIT Delhi Alumni Association or from GCC?
This is a very eclectic forum. So what I'm hoping is precisely talking about collaborations. It's one of those things where ideas get nucleated once they are rolling around, so just hearing everyone and seeing what can, so, it's funny, but one of the main themes of my research is emergence of properties. You have electrons, they are all the same, every single electron, but when they interact, something new emerges, like that superconducting state. And I want to draw sort of lessons from this superconducting state. It is a very interesting state of matter where instead of each electron having its own wave function, the collective has a single quantum wave function. And this collective can do something the single electron could not do, which is to have this flow through the material with zero resistance. Okay, now I'm going to jump ahead and say, here are all of us. I'm sure we have very different ideas. If we could pick one issue, and to me right now, the most urgent issue for us is really some kind of anything related to climate change. And if there was something we could do, it seems like such a distant possibility because it's such a big problem. And the tendency is, what can I as an individual at all do in this, except for like putting some solar panels or composting my garbage, but what else can I be doing? So I'm hoping collectively some ideas grow, and together we can at least in some, we're not thinking of some big, huge impact. Even a small impact would be useful, because then it can have its own reverberations going forward. So that's kind of what I'm looking for from GCC, because of the diverse backgrounds of people coming to this discussion forum.
Pradeep, can I make a comment?
Just give me a sec, Abhay. Now, I'll just make 3 comments before I go across to Abhay. Number 1 is that you explained the concept so beautifully, and that is what I loved even when I had a chat with you for the first time. That for people with diverse backgrounds to get the conceptual flow together, which is in other words to how do we make 1 plus 1 is equal to 11. Beautiful concept. Number 2 is that you mentioned about climate, and I couldn't agree more with you that at this particular point in time, something which everybody had left it to for their kids and their grandkids is hitting us straight in the face. When we see the high temperatures in Vancouver, or we see the fires in California, or we see floods in Germany, or we see glaciers melting away in India, kind of a stuff. So to that extent, a couple of IITD alumni have also kick-started a new initiative called InSquare, which is inclusive innovation in the new normal, which has 3 elements in terms of inclusion. Number 2 is innovation, and the number 3 is new normal. And the new normal part of it is bang on focusing on, we have got a first event on this Thursday, which is Women in ESG. And we've got speakers from IITD alumni from Spain. We've got a partnership going with Israel. So I'll be absolutely delighted to get you more involved into it, because I couldn't agree more that climate is a very, very big issue. And I've already got a couple of people from IITD alumni in Canada looking at how a modular breakup of this theme can be. So absolutely noted, and will get you more involved into this. So now for the last this thing with Nandini, over to you, Abhay. You wanted to say something?
Yes. Hi, Nandini. This is Abhay Oswal. Can you see me?
Yes. Hi, Abhay.
Oh, hi. How are you? I am from a very early batch, a second batch of IIT Delhi. And I've lived in the US for all 50 years of my life until recently. And I moved to Delhi. At least every other year I come here and stay here. Delhi AQI is, you won't believe, right now is 472 and has been as high as 500 just as recently as last 2 days. And every time I've come to Delhi, I find this climate change impacting India even more so than any other place in the world. That was one of the motivations I had in building not only just this battery we are working on, this new age lithium sulfur battery, which supposedly could bring the price performance to the point where the EVs become more cost effective, more financially applicable, and more affordable for most people. And if you can at least make that change between fossil fuels versus electricity produced motion, we could impact the climate at least enough that we can feel the difference. And so we are building this battery called lithium sulfur, and I have a collaboration with a Tata company and a German company and 3 IITs working together on this project. And we are hoping to have some results within a year from time frame. I'd love to connect with you because you have some interesting angles and ideas about climate, which is we are very passionate about. And that's the primary motivation. We're not so much into this for money. We are trying to do this to changing India. So love to
I think that would be very interesting. One of the things I am keen on is figuring out the actual cost of something. So, like you said, lithium batteries, what is the actual cost? Like environmental cost, the toxicity, disposability, all of that. And one of the things at my university that we are trying is taking the science of any of these things, could be solar cells or storage batteries, but also connecting it with the business angle, the policy angle, and ultimately human behavior. Because
Yes.
until all of this comes together, you may have the best ideas. Nobody will, like, even take something like the vaccine. People don't take it because they are suspicious about it.
Right.
So yeah, I think what you're saying is I'll be very happy to connect and also think about all the other angles of this.
I'm so
And
glad I attended it today.
and
That was
I
so
will
nice.
connect both of you, and not only that, but Nandini, I also wanted to tell you that one of the things that this platform has already started doing is to look at connecting people where we see synergies, subject to both people being happy to connect. So likewise, Abhay, we have connected Abhay Oswal with Sumant Sinha, who is the founder of the largest renewable energy in India, also listed in Nasdaq. And this is where I see one of the value propositions developing in terms of reconnecting back with all of us, networking, and looking at how do we take it to the next level of idea creation, or even for that matter into um, benefit of the society. And there's a whole range of values. So with that,
So, Pradeep, one thing that would be helpful is if you could later on just send a message saying these are all the points of connections,
so
people and companies and links, whatever you have, that would itself be very valuable.
so what has happened? Let me also give you the background that this initiative has got restarted just in about July this year. So it is early days at the moment, and that's why we are kind of still seeking. And I am doing this, out of 100 other things that I'm kind of managing within whatever time that I can find out to do. So it is very much in conceptual stage, but this is very much on the cards. Now, how and when, etc., is a bit more as we kind of make the bigger, because in building a community there are three parts to it. One is growing the community, second is engaging with the community, and the third is going into value creation. We are still in stage one, but the fabulous thing is that you see, it has got, it's really rung a bell with so many different alumni, and it is that simply exploding. And that is where I'm looking forward. And I'll have a follow through chat also with you, in certain things that I have in mind based on this discussion today. So with that, let's give a big round of applause to Nandini. It has been a very, very enlightening session today, and I look forward to getting you more involved in an area which is at the top of your agenda. To my mind,
Thank you
yes,
much
climate,
for
I've
this.
already noted.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you all for listening and for your comments.
So take care, and once again, please, people, I want to see your hands. This is a virtual one, but that's what it is. With that, I now go, and like I always keep reminding everybody that I am the gentleman that I am. I will go across to the second lady today, and we have Anupama Mallik. She is into what? Something which I am very, very deeply involved in, and which everybody seems to be talking about. Well, the likes of Facebook, etc., are calling it metaverse. But for simple people, we are still talking about stuff like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, extended reality, and the real reality. So, what is Anupama Mallik doing? But she is also very, very fascinatingly involved in digital heritage. And how does she blend with this world of avatars? Let's go across to Anupama. Let's give a big round of applause to Anupama. Anupama, tell us. I know that you did your PhD from IIT Delhi, but you don't look that studious, like doing a PhD and all that. So tell us, where did your journey start? What made you do a PhD from IIT Delhi?
I should wear my, the intelligence hat, I think artificial intelligence hat rather, now that I'm in virtual reality space. And I should have had my avatar sitting here maybe just to prove. But I think it was just pure, there was a time when I had I took a very different journey right from the beginning. As you know, that I actually was a student of physics as well. So very nice to meet Professor Nandini today. And I remember my quantum mechanics was one of my favorite subjects. I really wish that I had maybe better teachers like you, so that, who could have kept that interest going. And well, in the 80s, when I finished my graduation in physics from Delhi University, I didn't find it very exciting to continue in physics somehow. But got the other area which I think today I really love, and I'm very happy that I went there, was I did my master's in computer applications. And that is, something which had just kind of come into India. And Delhi University had one of the best computer centers, but we had these large IBM servers where you could go and punch cards, and the excitement of working with assembly language coding, where you would feed in a 200-line code, and suddenly the light would go and the whole code was gone, and you had to start punching all over again. I mean, those days are actually very interesting, where you saw bits and bytes really realize and give solutions. Yogesh sir would probably remember, one of my batchmates from MCA worked with him in nucleus software. After that, well, I think I had a different journey. I started my work as a software engineer, purely into computers, worked with Center for Department of Telematics, CDOT, where we were creating system software for rural exchanges. CDOT was a very revolutionary, I would say, a different company. It was run like a company. It was a government organization, and it was creating these rural exchanges which will go into the villages of India. And it happened, which is really, interesting times to have been there. And I was working there, but got the bug of entrepreneurship somehow in my head. I never wanted a boss. I wanted to be my own boss, and I wanted to have my own timings. I didn't realize then. Now I can say, after 20 years of being in, running my own business, that this is not what happens. You actually work for your employees. You are actually, when you are in business, you have no time. I mean, I thought I will have more time, and I actually think in business, if you're running it, you actually are, no time. It's always hands-on. But anyway, so I started my own company in '92. It was a software company developing software for all kind of applications. And I think that was when I started, and I was just on my own. It was the best time, because I was creating code, I was writing, and I was creating solutions. So I was working with computers and learning the power of computers, software and hardware. Very interesting time. PhD came much later. I took a break, and when I took a break, because I raised a family, I had 2 children. And after that, I was wanting to learn again, and there is no better way to learn than to teach. So I went to teach and became a lecturer in one of the universities in Delhi. And that's when I kind of learned about artificial. A lot of work was then happening. This is in the 2000, late 90s, 2000, when a lot of work was happening in artificial intelligence. Having taught for 3 years, I wanted to be in academics, and that's the only reason I applied for a PhD at IIT Delhi. I got a good break. I was not taken seriously. I was told by IIT Delhi, you can only join as a master's, MS, and not PhD. So I again had a backpack, and I studied in IIT Delhi. And I've been telling Pradeep sir that I understood what IIT Delhi system is all about. It's not about who comes in. It's about how they, have an experience and go out. The kind of pressure cooker that you're put into, I would call it a pressure cooker. You have 5 deadlines at the same time. You have to think, implement, operate, not sleep, and just, come up with the solutions which are all your own. So you can't just mug up something and, produce and really reproduce that, but you have to think on your toes. And otherwise, I mean, in some of the subjects. So that was a very exciting time to do coursework there while doing my PhD. So I did take the longest time. So my MS got converted to PhD with my credits. I also remember grades was very important. Professor Nandini just said, I remember in the very first minor that I took, I just thought I just have to learn, and as I said, and write my papers. And I got, I think, 9 out of 20 or something. So in my life, I've been, such a student in school, college, I just couldn't believe that I had really, this kind of grade. So that was one of the challenges which, I really thought I should take on. It was great learning experience. PhD, 7 years to complete. So post PhD, I started my own company, and you know that I can talk of that later. But doing
So,
PhD at IIT Delhi was good.
so tell me, Anupama, I thought that I was the only C grader over here, but what the hell? Yeah, everybody I speak to seems to have got at some point in time. But I know it's great people always think alike. So now, tell me, what are you doing in VR here?
We are doing some, I think, very interesting things, because again, I just feel that every time there is a technology which is suddenly, put to you to really use, is when you start to learn it and understand the power of. So mostly with the augmented and virtual reality field, we have tried to create experiences around heritage. So, and this just fell in my lap in the last 2 years of my PhD, where the government was putting in funds to create exciting experiences, or mainly actually archive the heritage of Hampi in Karnataka. This is one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And they really wanted a cutting edge technology to be applied there, where we then looked at, laser scanning, using high resolution photographs, and simply creating an archive of what Hampi is today and what Hampi was. So along with the tangible monument sites, also the intangibles of the folklore, the stories, the crafts, the way that living traditions that are there, all had to be digitized. And my own PhD was using use of multimedia ontologies, which is more towards the semantic web and artificial intelligence side. So I had to apply this knowledge to how actually you can access this huge amount of data that we collected. So we digitized Hampi, about 85 artifacts, monuments, structures. And not only that, we also created a huge repertoire of the culture and tradition of Hampi. Now, how to link everything. So I provided the layer which would have a semantic interlinking of this data. And I think that was a very interesting part. And when we presented it to people, we realized AR, VR, this mix of artificial intelligence, it really created experiences which got people very happy about, and they wanted to learn more and they wanted to know more. So, which is very unlike, people normally run away from history and say, we have to remember dates and we have to remember names, and people want to run away. But this is a completely different way of engaging with history, which I thought would be great.
So can you showcase something that you've done? Something that we possibly showcased at the VRARA Global Summit?
Right. So I have a short video of what we created, the Kashi Vishwanath temple. If people have been to Varanasi and been to the temple, most of the time you don't get to see the temple. I've been there. There's so many crowds that you really don't get to see the structure and how beautiful it is and what really you can have an experience of. So we simulated this experience of Kashi Vishwanath temple, and I'll just show you a short video. This is when you are as if you are wearing a headset to have this experience, and you are inside the temple, and you can have different views simulated of day, night, etc., and see the aarti which happens. So I'm just going to show this. So is this visible?
Yep, it is. So, just on a aside, how does the IIT network work? I met Anupama through Yogesh Angle. And there's another person in the room today. This is Pradeep Kapoor, जिसको हम प्यार से एम्बेसडर पीके बुलाते हैं. And Anupama has also interacted with Pradeep Kapoor. And Anupama, how did you interact with Pradeep Kapoor and for what?
Pradeep sir and Yogesh sir, Yogesh sir has been a mentor for me. And I was, the company Vizara Technologies that I formed in 2016 is incubated at IIT Delhi. And I met Yogesh sir there. And I remember one day I was I caught hold of Yogesh sir and said, sir, you have to tell me, I'm not getting any, way wide. How do I go to the government? How will they understand what the power of the work that we are doing? He said, Arey, Pradeep is here. Let me just take you to him. I didn't know Pradeep sir. So he took me to one, professor's room. Pradeep sir was there. They both came and saw the IIT lab where we were working. And we were creating these installations, which are basically a large 3D printed replicas of these monuments and the digital interactions that you can have. So I remember Pradeep sir telling me, look, what you have is very good. Don't get scared that it's not good enough, because I kept on saying it's not good enough. It has to be better. He said, no, I think you're wrong. Just go. And he's been a very, he's been a great guide, both of them. I just call up, I fix up, I call and say, sir, you have to tell me what to do next. He tells me and I have to take those steps. So it has been quite amazing.
So, by the way, she's talking of another Pradeep, not me. Of course, I'm a very good mentor also, but the person she's referring to is Pradeep Kapoor, who's also my batchmate. Now, what was the impact? Huh?
I was away from the call for a minute. There was a phone call. Sorry about that. But, absolutely great job. We were very happy to help with Vizara Technologies in Cambodia also. Yogesh was the prime mover. And
so you
Anupama
were the
done
ambassador.
Absolutely phenomenal work.
Hey, PK, you were the ambassador at that time at Cambodia, weren't you?
No. This was post my assignment in Cambodia.
Okay.
I was in Delhi. I was in India. So she showed us her phenomenal, work that she has been doing in the labs in IIT Delhi, and that inspired us so much that we were very happy to go the whole hog and support her, because it's a phenomenal thing not only for India or for Cambodia but for the whole world. So that's where we want her to be ultimately reaching very soon.
Thanks to Pradeep sir, I went to Cambodia, in fact, and presented this work to the International Coordinating Committee of Angkor Wat. And I really got a very good applause and for the work that we've been doing here, because it's been funded by Department of Science and Technology as well. So I was representing DST in Cambodia, and thanks to Pradeep sir, that's the first international coverage for the work that we got, which is quite really nice.
On a different track, this COVID environment has led to increased online activity. Now, you also helped IIT Jodhpur in their convocation. So, what did you do over there?
So this just, I think this is last year, November, and my own mentor, Professor Shantanu Chaudhary is director there. He called me and said, look, we have to do our convocation. Our students are not able to come. You have to do something. And I want to do it, in a way that students feel part of the convocation. So it was, a challenge literally, back to my minor major days, where I had 17 days to really reproduce and do something which could excite the students. We ended up creating a 360-degree live stream for students to be part of. They could, if they wanted, they could wear headsets. We also created 3D avatars of the the medal winners, as well as of the faculty members, director and chief guest. And we actually presented it in an environment. If you like, I can show it. So the chief guest was...
Absolutely show it. And also I want the audience or everybody else to know that before Anupama did this, there had been 2 sessions by IIT Madras and IIT Bombay to have online convocations, but they had not actually really used immersive tech. So this was a step ahead. So over to you, Anupama, you want to showcase what you did for IIT Jodhpur?
It's again a 1-minute video, so I'll just show this very quickly to see. that the chief guest is in Toronto, but he was kind of presented on a virtual screen and it looked as if he was talking to people directly.
So what you can do is you can show the 1 minute video in 59 seconds. Okay. So
Thank you very much for your
yeah, I'll just share this. Is this visible?
Yep, it's coming up.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your very generous introduction. I hereby inaugurate the School of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science at IIT Jodhpur. I wish every success to the
This is a
school,
virtual screen,
which is set to
and
play
here
a
is the
major
actual
role
people sitting
in
here.
basic research and applications of AI and data science, both in India and on the global stage.
Here are the avatars of the students who are the medal winners.
I pledge that I will stand, shall be scrupulously honest, and will be honest. At the start of peace, and at the start of President's Gold Medal for the Credgenics student, the best academic performance among students of all degree programs of the class of 2020 goes to Vizara.
So as you saw, it was a mix of 2D real reality, mixed reality in that sense, because the students who couldn't be there actually saw their avatars taking degrees and medals, and I think somehow that made them very happy, and I'm so happy we made them happy that way.
Okay, Anupama, last question of the day for you. Is it you or is it your avatar now?
I just replaced myself, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to Anupama. So you see how the female power has been asserting itself. You know, fabulous.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I can't say, I mean, every time I come to this forum, I mean, there are people who are slightly senior to me, but who are like, you know, doing so much more. And I'm so happy, Professor Nandini, to be involved. My own wish and feel for GCC is to be able to do something more meaningful together. I'll be very happy to be part of any kind of support I can provide from here and with my team as well.
And to correct you on that particular note, it is not only people who are senior to you. You will meet people who are, let me count, 19 plus 17 is equal to 36 years junior to Nandini, and who will also be talking today.
That's
And
great.
this is the power of GCC. Now, with that, let's move across to the
can I just ask one quick question?
Please.
Anupama, I have gone to several of these Indus Valley sites in Dhoravira and Lothal, and a large part of the site is unexcavated.
Yes.
And they are using technology to, without excavating, to reveal what is inside.
Yes,
and
yes.
I was wondering if that could be combined with your digital technology, this virtual technology, to bring out what is not even excavated.
So, yeah, Anand, we are also working with the CBRI, Central Building Research Institute, who actually are using number of these technologies to be looking at, data which is underground using laser. Currently, that is possible. They also look at structural validations before they actually excavate. So we are helping them with these as well. And I work very closely with ASI, even at Hampi. And currently, they are very excited about all their excavation sites having some kind of a gaming interface where people can go to the site and have an app where they can see what was done. So on one hand, we use technology to find out more and work more. And second is we give them the experience of what these archaeologists actually, how they find it and how they really look at things. So,
okay,
thank
you.
But I will take on this.
So Nandini, don't get me started on this, because then there is no stopping. Will keep talking and on because VR and XR is so much in my blood. But I also see Raju from Toronto raising his hand. So Raju, what is your question?
Hey, hi, hey, fantastic, depiction in our AR/VR world, Anupama. So, I wanted to ask about the NFT world that's coming up in this space of digital, and the pricing that's going on for this NFT-based artifacts? And what is your opinion about how the AR VR role may be in this new virtual metaverse context? That's one. Second is, of course, and I would like to share more about TCS at offline of what we are doing with you later on.
I'll be very happy. In fact, we've been, most my mentors know, people from TCS very well. And I'd like to be Professor Ghosh, under whom I did my first job. Hiranmay Ghosh was part of TCS research, and he's a very close friend now. So NFT it's going to stabilize. I think it's so new, and I think it's just creating waves at the moment. I think Pradeep sir might be able to answer more, but digital, not only just NFT is not just for art. Most of the people are using it for buying art or buying some random things like tweets. It's being used to buy. So I think like Bitcoin and NFT, they have to stabilize as currencies, and that might happen over a period of time. I can't really comment on where it will be in terms of heritage artifacts, because heritage artifacts are owned by the government and by the people. I personally feel it's nobody's business to stop anybody in public to access any of these heritage artifacts. I'd like to take it to as many people, democratize it completely. But some people may have more power with the NFT and Bitcoin and currency. I don't know.
So let me respond to Raju's question. Raju, NFTs is very much the way of digital assets, because NFTs, per nature, by using blockchain at the infrastructure level, are able to provide a level of authentication and ownership, and to such an extent that recently New York Stock Exchange was sold for $38,000, the digital artifact. And there is an artist which is a very, very more prominent example of NFT, is a artist popularly known as Meeple. He created 5,000 works of art, digital art, over 5,000 days. That means one piece of art was being put up every day. This was sold by whom? By Sotheby's for $69 million. So we are seeing, what started off in art has gone on to so many different asset categories. There is a site called Decra Land where you can buy digital acres of land. But I have to stop there because tomorrow I'm speaking at a conference in Korea on metaverse, and I just spoke on another conference in Korea last week on metaverse. This is very hot, but this is a bit futuristic. But AR, VR is a very, very big subject, and I have to stop now because in the interest of time. So,
thank you.
You see, I am the executive director Asia Pacific with the largest VR AR association in the world. And in India itself, we are working to create a national corridor. We've got Reliance Jio, Bosch, BPCL, IIT Jodhpur, World University of Design, Whistling Woods as members. There's so much work happening at the moment. You will see coming across in the next 2 to 3 years. But this is not about me or VRAR. This is about our Alumni Association and GCC. So with a big round of applause, we now go across to who? We go across to finally, I thought that men are getting discriminated against. So we now go across to a male. And whom do we go across to? We go across to a gentleman who was a 1995 graduate from IIT Delhi, a person by the name of Alok Mishra. His title is Deputy Director General at Niti Aayog. Both of these are very awesome sounding. First of all, the word Deputy Director General, makes it sound, man, this guy must be really big. And then Niti Aayog, this is what is transforming India. But jokes apart, this man is being around in so many, although he's been a civil service officer, he's, that curiosity, that bent of mind which IITians have, that is a true triumph. But let's have a chat with Alok. Alok, please give a round of applause to Alok. And Alok, tell us, what did you do post IIT Delhi?
So, Pradeep, post IIT, I joined civil services. I joined, information service, Indian Information Service. So I worked in various departments of Ministry of Information Broadcasting. Information broadcasting, whether it is a democratic government or it's a communist government, it can be a fairly regressive kind of, at least the government communication can be fairly regressive in nature. Then I sort of, when I joined government, the idea was not to sort of, the idea was that I was always intrigued by that, as a common man, when we interacted with the government could look so sloppy, inefficient. And then sort of, I thought that, okay, let me see that, this is how the organizations works. So let me know that how the policies are made. So somehow I entered the policy making era, department, which is like sort of, the ministries do that job of making the policy. So I went to, Department of, Ministry of Education, what is called now, Ministry of Education. That time it was called Human Resource Development. And I was director for IITs and triple IITs. And then I thought that, okay, policy making also doesn't work that efficiently. Let me know that, where these bureaucrats come from. And then I realized that I had to go to my own training academy, which is bit of a Mecca, that is LBS Academy. So I went there as a faculty member and senior deputy director. And thereafter I came to, something called a think tank, Niti Aayog, because Planning Commission got sort of converted into Niti Aayog in 2015, where it lost that role which, it used to play, before 2015 of, creating plans, 5-year plans, and then, funding the governments, those, plan schemes. And it became a think tank. So I think that gave me sort of, another opportunity to explore that why the governments are the way they are and where are the gaps that we could probably precisely look to fill. So that's how has been my journey over last 20 years, over 20 years.
So I particularly want to pick up on the time that you worked with Ministry of HRD and looking after IITs. So in a sense, were you kind of tracking how IITs are performing?
That's right. So, I was director for division of IITs and triple IITs. So what happens is that all the that time there were 16 IITs. 8 were the older ones, and then the 8 new were coming up. And so the head of division has all the, sort of tasks, monitoring their performance, funding IITs, new IITs, old IITs, because IITs depend a lot on the central government funding. Unlike some of the IIMs, like IIM A, B, C, they don't take even a penny from the government. IIM Lucknow is also sort of beginning, not to take any money. IIM Indore is next on the way. IIM Kozhikode is next on the way. But unlike IIMs, IITs depend a lot on the government, and that's where I was involved in sort of funding them, in reviewing their performance, in selection of their directors, chairmen, all that process.
So like you would ring up, Devang Khakkar and say, what happened to that 1 crore that I gave you, kind of a stuff?
No, nothing of that sort. Just because I came from, that's right. Just became, I came from IITs, so I had, all that respect that we as IITs have.
What is your view about IITs, since you have been involved at a very, very macro level, in terms of, in one of the panel sessions that I was moderating, and Professor Ram Gopal Rao was also one of the speakers at that panel. So I told Professor Ram Gopal Rao, I said, look, the IITs are getting anyway the top 1%, or whatever the top cream of the crop, so as to say. So does it really matter that which system they go through? They will anyway do well. So what is your take on that?
So, Pradeep, I'll look at IITs from 3 perspectives I'll give. First thing is the, finance. So this debilitating dependence on, central government funds is what sort of, has driven IITs to be less autonomous. Let me put it this way. See, if you get funds from the government, then government will try to sort of, control you. Right. That is one part. IITs have not made the kind of attempt they should have made to sort of, become financially more independent. And one way I could have seen was industry academia collaboration. And, IITs, we were there when I was there, we sort of, IIT Madras Research Park was still coming up. And then, we sort of, got them funding of 100 crores from the central government. We also got approval for IIT Delhi, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Kanpur, and IIT Bombay Bay Research Park. But somehow, what I have seen is that, since they have a permanent faculty working there, I mean, I may sound slightly, critical, but, I mean, over a period of time, the faculty sort of loses interest in connecting to the industry. And somehow they are, pretty comfortable in the cocoons that they have, created around themselves. And probably that's what I was think is that, why IITs are not what, Stanford maybe, or what Cornell maybe, or what MIT maybe. So that is one perspective. Second thing is that, the management perspective. Somehow, I think we had pushed for approval that IITs could, devise their own sort of, their own management structures. What I mean by that is that they could bring in a CEO, some professional management, rather than academic faculty doing something that they may not be best at. I mean, this is not to say that director need not be an academician, but under him or under a finance CFO, you could always bring, under a professor, finance head, you could always bring professional management. So, the management in IIT needs to be made, more professional. Third thing I would say that, they still need to start, working on, they have been getting some of the best students, but I don't think they can take it for granted. Last year, I remember JE1 and JE3 for the first time did not go to any of the IITs. Rather, they decided to go to MIT or Cornell, right? And that was shocking for me. So IITs cannot take the premier position for granted. They have made some improvement over years in that, QS ranking and THE ranking, but I think that improvement leaves much to be desired. So, that has been the kind of perspective that I have.
Yeah, well, to me also, when I look at 100,000 feet, yeah, very interesting perspective. Now I want to go to a different, track altogether. And the track is that you are now with Niti Aayog. And you head up what is called monitoring and evaluation, which is a kind of a feedback loop, with the delivery organization, which I presume are the ministries. So what do you do? What is your role?
Right. So, so there are 2 or 3 things that I do. First thing is that, one needs to understand that in the 360-degree program cycle or the policy cycle, what is the role that monitoring and especially the evaluation takes, has. And so what we do is that although monitoring lies within the domain of the ministry, which is implementing a particular program, but what we do is that we bring it together, we force them to define output and outcome indicators. Pradeep, we have to see one thing that, so for so long in India, we have concentrated on inputs, right? Or maybe some of the outputs. Let me give you an example. We have, so many schools, right? We just think in terms of number of buildings that have been created, number of blackboards that have been created, or number of teachers who have been placed there, or number of computers or internet connectivity that has been provided. But, with all that, the learning doesn't happen, right? All over, whatever learning outcomes that, we get through, various surveys, that has not been picking up really. And that is a big challenge. So we force the ministries to sort of, work on outcomes, right? You may talk about so many hospitals built or so many doctors being trained, but, your stunting or malnutrition does not improve. So, those are the health outcomes I'm looking at. And that's how we are looking at development outcomes. So what we have is an output outcome monitoring framework, which actually monitors over 500 government schemes across 65 ministries. And that, what we do is that the targets are set as, aligned to the, proportionate to the budgetary allocations. And then we sort of, we monitor the progress against those targets that is made, that is made. And this document gets, appended to the budget document that comes out. So that is one part, that is just a simple monitoring part. But evaluation is something different. Evaluation, I'm saying that, okay, whatever the progress or the improvement has taken place in something, whether it is due to the intervention that was made, that is, I'm looking for causal linkages, and that is a whole different area of research altogether. And why I'm saying is that so often we tend to attribute, positive outcomes to the interventions that the government may be making, while in reality that may not be so. So evaluation tells you that, whether that particular outcome is because of the intervention that is there. And if it is not, then what kind of tweaking in the policies or programs that I need to do so that my outcomes are better aligned to what I expect. And what I think is that monitoring, monitoring still is there because we bureaucrats love monitoring, but evaluation is what will determine that how effective our policy outcomes are. And by that, what I mean is that how our limited budgetary resources are going to be spent to enhance the developmental outcomes. And that's where I see, as a big gap that exists in the policy cycle or in the development sector, at least as far as the government is concerned.
So, in a sense, your role can be that of a mentor, or
Yes.
your role can be that of a sheriff. What is
Yes.
your role?
Yeah. So, monitoring and, evaluation is supposed to sort of, have 2 or 3 roles, right? It can be accountability mechanisms, like you're saying, right? It can be, ensuring, that people are delivering what they're supposed to deliver. It can also be a bit of a learning role. Please understand that bureaucracies don't like to they don't like to be sort of evaluated. You tell somebody who has devised a program and he or she may be very closely sort of attached to the program and tell him that it's not working. Actually, the person will really feel bad. He'll throw your report out of the window. So we take a more learning kind of approach. And I think, that will seem to work over a period of time. Obviously, accountability part cannot be sort of ignored altogether because these are public funds. And but more we are veering towards learning, sort of, having that learning kind of, objectives, so that we get these evaluation findings, adopted or used for tweaking policies, which can become more effective.
So, Alok, I can see that you are very popular because I can see so many hands going up. So let me go. And one of the very lovely questions which I see from the chat is that Sanjay is asking is that what is the difference between Planning Commission and Niti Aayog? Is it just old wine in new bottle?
Right. So, not really. There are 2 or 3 lenses through which I look at. First thing is the planning part, which was sort of, planning part. So Niti now comes up with strategic documents, right? It's not the plan document the way it was under which different, plan schemes were devised and for which Niti Aayog used to give funds. So those funds have totally gone out of Niti Aayog. So, if you think funds, define, then Niti Aayog is powerless because, now it's the Ministry of Finance that does it. The sad part is the same thing has happened, in the state governments also. So state governments also have their planning department, and state governments, since the funds are directly being given by the ministries to the state ministry, so the state planning commissions have also lost the kind of relevance that they had. The second role, which I think is more important, please understand that ministries, since there are 65, there are total of 74 ministries, and ministries can become very siloed in their approach. I remember, quite a few things I could talk, but since, they're, I can't reveal them. But, ministries can have their own vested interests, right? And because of which certain reform measures may not be, undertaken. What sort of, sometimes the ministries also are bad at interministerial, coordination, right? Suppose I'm looking at sector, say, for example, I'm looking at transport sector. I need to, the policies in transport sector across roads, across railways, across civil aviation need to be coordinated and have to be in sync. They can't be at cross purposes. So Niti Aayog plays that kind of role, right? Niti Aayog puts its thinking hat, when the ministries are not going to go beyond their own, siloed thinking. Niti Aayog brings them together. Niti Aayog comes up with, strategic documents. Niti Aayog creates a competitive, landscape for the states to start pushing for different things. So, that's the approach.
Excellent. Oh, man, I'm seeing a lot of echo myself. So why is that echo coming? Anyway, let's go to Raju. Raju, your question, please.
Hey, hi. So thanks for this policy discourse. I don't know. I'm also hearing this echo.
Yes, echo. I can hear a lot of echo. Yeah.
So my question is in the chat also, which is basically the disruptives that are in this higher education industry.
Right.
And you have been involved in the planning of the IITs for future, etc., and the policies out there. So the disruptors in this industry may be from players we may not have even seen before. Okay, like what is happening by the embracement of online education today. And 10 years back, Clayton Christensen has talked about this in his book, The Innovative University, saying that the disruption will come from low cost, high quality providers who can kind of replace or education institutes. And that is the time when Stanford adopted online models and MOOCs and MIT edX and all. So of course in India we have got NPTEL and that is going on. So there are two parts to this question. One is that there are these kind of disruptors which are getting into the market, which may have a new life. And once the corporates say, yes, I would like to hire people who are getting some badges from these credential users, the nature of the game might change. So that is the first point. The second point is that, okay, now we are looking at the history of IITs have been in the country, etc. And now because of the new education policy, government is encouraging institutes to go outside the country, as well as the top 100 universities in the world to come into India, etc. But this new hybrid format, which is now pretty much there, and the question students are asking is, why should I even go to another country when I can do it in my own country? The top degree in the world. So two parts to this question, and I also like finally the thing that you said.
Raju, we will
not
have
students
to be quick
but
in the
learners.
interest of, Raju, in the interest of time, we'll have to be quick. What are the two questions?
So micro credentials. Is that a disruptor? Do you see that? Number one. Second, with the universities spreading outside India and top 100 universities coming into India, do you see that changing the game?
So,
right. So micro credentials. I mean, I have always thought that micro credentials can supplement the the degree that you have. They cannot replace it entirely, at least not in the short term. You would have realized that higher education was a last disrupted sector, right? Because we have these study-for-day professors sitting out there, not willing so much to change, and that is good and bad in both sense, because education is so fundamental to human existence. But micro credentials, surely I see as making some impact, but that would be sort of as supplementing the main core, rather than replacing it, at least in the in the short term, because physical universities, whatever we may talk about online, physical universities, provide two or three things, that physical connectivity, linking to people, physical presence has its own, despite all the metaverse being there, does human being, there's something about human connections that gets established when you're physically interacting with somebody, and physical university does provide. But yes, I do understand that going forward it would be hybrid models where it could be physical on off, like it is happening in the school space. They call students on some days, and some days they are working from studying from home. The second part, yes, the foreign universities coming to India. What I have seen is that because the regulatory mechanisms were either artificially so poorly designed, and and so many loopholes could be leveraged. In fact, if you see, the 1980s started with all these private institutions coming up in the southern part of the country, and through a bit of a backdoor kind of mechanism. But as a result, you have, I come from Bhopal, and that has some 100 technology institution. Go to Indore, that has 50 more, right? You go to Pune, Hyderabad, and all that, all of them are of fairly questionable quality. I think when you get since IITs admit only 1% of the students, so they don't change the competitive landscape. What I'm hoping is that if the foreign universities come to India, they will try to slightly change that competitive space. I do understand that Ashokas and ISBs have come up, but many more need do, need to sort of, come up. Mahindras have invested. But I think universities, foreign universities coming in India, they will change that competitive landscape in a way that market will sort of, remove, those at the lowest end of, quality and, service or education that they sort of provide. So foreign universities is going to be good, but education, as I said, that, university was a concept which was universal. Education was supposed to be universal. Once the nations came into existence, the universities came aligned to national thought. And while we may sort of think it's good or bad, no, but for something, knowledge that is supposed to be universal, restricting it within those national boundaries has created problems. So I'm not too sure that how many universities will come, or what kind of sort of regulatory mechanism would be created or created for them, so that they actually feel welcome.
And on that,
Thank you.
just for I will ask all the speakers, because we have a global audience, to just say their name, place of location, and what they are doing professionally. So Raju is based in Toronto. He's vice president with TCS, and particularly is focused on industry academia collaboration.
Oh, that's great.
And as a passing comment, you see the entire value proposition of higher education has come into question in the recent years.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so over to Pradeep Kapoor. Pradeep Kapoor, what is your question?
Thank you, Pradeep, for this great work that you're doing, and thank you to Alok Mishra for bringing in this very creative thinking into Niti Aayog and into the government wherever he's working. That is very much required and useful and essential. So Alok, you're doing absolutely outstanding work. My question to you is the following: that Niti Aayog and Wheels Global Foundation is an IIT alumni who are doing work in India in the rural areas, in water, healthcare, education, energy, livelihoods, and sustainability. We have become a partner of the Niti Aayog outreach. How do we see more action on that, in the sense that Niti Aayog has selected some partners from the NGO community, including this? That is the first part of it. Second part is about, earlier the complaints from a lot of the IIT directors and IIT faculty was that there is too much interference or too much control by the government on the IITs all over India. Now seeing people like Alok Mishra and so many others from the IITs having positions in the government, including at the level of secretary and principal scientific advisor to the government of India, and so many secretaries I can name here. How do you see this, control by the IITians of the government today changing the course of India's destiny?
No, let me sort of, put the first question. I think, while connecting with Niti Aayog is great, Niti Aayog doesn't have funds actually, right? So, it does collaborate with ministries. My understanding would be that, certain programs like Aspirational District Program, where they're actually going out on the ground, and trying to sort of, put some resources out there, see that what are the developmental gaps, and, creating that strong monetary and, state capacity, so that, all those developmental gaps are filled. I think, connecting on some specific program would be much more useful. Second thing is that,
we are partners of Niti Aayog on entrepreneurship and social impact, primarily.
Okay, understand.
On that panel, yeah.
Okay. So there I'll have to really, no, sir, I'll have to look at it, because this is not the thing that I have followed up so much. But yes, as far as IITians in government are concerned, there are quite a few of them, and I'm not too sure that they have made impact. Obviously, they have been sort of put in various great positions, but I don't think there are so many IITians that there are quite a significant number of them. But in the government, I'm not too sure that how much impact. They would have created impact.
Alok, just for your background information, when I was sitting with DOPT secretary a few years back, maybe 4-5 years back, he mentioned to me that 65% of the intake for the IAS
they're engineers.
Are engineers, of which a very large majority are IITians. So today, it would be maybe 30 to 40% were, because when I go to embassies abroad, Indian
Sir.
embassies, the
Sir.
ambassador or the deputy ambassador or so many officers are
Quite a
from
few
the
of them.
IITs also.
Right, sir. Right,
Yeah.
sir.
So to that extent, I see that happen in the sense in our interaction of wheels with the government. We find
Right.
that many times when we are interacting with the senior bureaucrats, they
Right,
are
sir.
from the IITs. So that makes
Yes.
it very easy for us to
That makes it very
interact
easy.
with them and
See,
work with them. Yes.
no, whatever said and done, IITians do, since they are connected to the wider IIT community, which is doing well across the world. So they do bring that, that level of respect for the expertise, less of feudalistic mentality, less of their hierarchical mentality, more of knowledge focus. So more of an academic bureaucrat, what I would call, academic practitioner kind of role that they bring, where they bring that expertise. So one thing good about IITians is that whichever field they go to, they try to actually understand that field. Because technology underpins so much of the development effort that happens. So that way IITians are doing well. I mean, I'm not too sure over a period of time in
So
terms of
at the moment,
Yeah.
I think Pradeep, we will close the question, and if need be, we will take it offline. Now, the
Yes,
last quick
yes, yes.
question to Abhay. Abhay, what did you want to? Do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question quickly?
Yes, I have a quick question. Alok, it was nice to see you. My name is Abhay. I put together a consortium of 3 IITs, 1 national lab, and a couple of industrial partners. And we're building a new generation of batteries suitable for energy storage, for green energy, as well as EV space. We raised money enough to get our project off the ground privately. And we approached Niti Aayog and some of the ministries to raise a larger sum of money to take these projects with full fruition. But we found that there is no synergy between Niti Aayog and some of the industries, some of the ministries that we were so directed to. Is there a reason that Niti Aayog could not take a leading role where it could be the entry point and can direct request to appropriate ministries and connect us to the right places, or do we have to really approach each one individually?
My understanding would be, to approach the ministry directly, because going in a roundabout manner, because Niti Aayog no longer funds, does any funding, and that's why it has, only some leverage, to the extent that Prime Minister office might create that kind of leverage. And in case when the secretaries are themselves very strong, and since then it's the ministry which holds all the wild cards. And my understanding would be that approaching the ministry is a much better idea rather than going through the Niti Aayog, because although Dr. V.K. Saraswat is there, who who is the member, who is handling all these technological development, and but I'm not too sure. I mean, have you connected to Dr. Saraswat at any point of time?
No, I have not.
Okay,
So,
okay,
Abhay,
understand.
the bottom line is that it is better with the delivery organizations to touch base with them, as they
Yes,
would be in a better
that works
position to respond
better,
to direct
much better.
requests.
Yes.
But sometimes not obvious where the best place to go, like the Ministry of
No, it is the
Heavy
ministry. It is the ministry. Any day, it is the ministry.
But which ministry would you go to? Like, would you go to road transport industry for batteries, or would you go to heavy industries ministry? That's a question.
Or you'll go to the road transport. You'll go to the road transport.
Okay.
So,
is Niti Aayog not able to make the connection for us? Open the door?
I think this
let
will
me,
be.
let me
Yeah,
find
so
it.
Abhay, let's take this offline at the moment.
Yes, yes, yes. Please feel
And
free.
Okay, sounds good.
take this offline.
Thanks.
Abhay, you get in touch with me. I have solutions for you, and I know whom to get in touch with.
Oh, that's
Saraswat
great.
has worked with me at DRDO.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. So nice.
So with that, let's give a big round of applause to Alok. It was absolutely wonderful, and looking at the sheer quantum of questions which were coming, I can really sense how interactive the session has been. So thank you once again, Alok, for joining in, and I will
Thank you,
touch base
Pradeep,
with
for
you.
inviting me. So nice of you.
And I'll touch base in the next couple of days, weeks to go. And now we go to the last but not the least, And as I said, today we are presenting sessions right from 2017 to 1981. And let's go across to whom? But none other than Anand Agrawal, 2017 graduate from IIT Delhi, who did what? In my recent chat with him, I found that he's just raised $25 million. Man, why didn't you give me 10% of that or even 1% of that? But let's give a big round of applause to Anand, who's transforming the collections sector. What does that mean, Anand? Tell us, what did you do post IIT Delhi?
Yeah, so hi everyone, and thank you, Pradeep, for inviting me here. Uh, so I graduated from IIT Delhi in 2017 from computer science background. Started working with 1MG technologies in my early days. So this entire journey started off by looking at what the next lending segment has been all about. So where most of these lending or the fintechs companies which were coming up in what next risk model they could come up with, better segment of people they could come up to whom they could be able to lend to. There could be different ways they could be able to underwrite those loan accounts, but nobody was kind of thinking from a collections point of view. From where, I mean, what we could sit back and think or see is that everybody was lending just from underwriting perspective, but not from a collections perspective. Rather, what we thought in a very different manner is that lending itself is a collections business. You can lend out very easily in certain different manners and certain different ways, but it's very hard to figure out how those collection processes would be tighter enough to get those money back in the system. And that's where we kind of took our paths very differently from those companies, from those fintechs, where we could create a platform which helped these lenders and banks to do the collections on their own, rather kind of looking at different systems, different outsourcing panels they had to kind of interact with for enabling their collections. So that was kind of the thought process we all started off with, and eventually it was more step by step learning over the journey. Every different processes of collections, one by one we stepped and started building that.
और भी खाना खाओ.
Yeah. So we were kind of building that module by module. There are different set of processes, junctures which come in collections. We took upon the last piece first, which is the most untouched by technology. There is no technological solutions you would find in the market. We kind of took that first, started building or thinking from a first principles, what would the best solutions be for this project or for this collection space. Then we kind of moved backwards towards the starting of the delinquency, where the first borrower misses out their loan account, where the borrower misses out that the EMI needs to be paid back. That's where we come in picture. We start off the set of different triggers, communications, passionately, triggering many of those communication where they're educating how does this affect your credit score, how does this affect the future perspective where you might not be able to take a new loan if your credit score goes bad, and it's very hard to build your credit score once it's kind of it's not in the proper shape. So I think that's the journey we had started, and it has been kind of quite well, doing well. The company is doing well. We have been almost two years in this field, and see a lot of potential to come and a lot of journey to cover as well.
So you missed out the $25 million.
Okay. So we started off with a very small investment from Snapdeal founders. So that was the starting point for us. But then eventually what we kind of, we partnered with Excel partners who helped us kind of shape this into a product form, into a SaaS platform. Eventually we were able to onboard 42 odd clients during our first phase of COVID. And that was the kind of good achievement for all of us, which kind of raised the eyebrows of many investors. We were contacted by many of those investors, not just from India, but also from US. One of those was Westbridge Capital. Westbridge has done many different investment in the financial sectors and has a very large quantum of fund which they manage for India. That's about 6 billion size of fund. We were able to secure a fund from them for our kind of next set of expedition, which is outside India, and that was $25 million. We look forward to using that fund, expanding not just in India, but also to Southeast Asia and to other parts of the world as well.
So, in other words, it's no longer collecting rupees, but it could be dollars, it could be, every damn currency in the world. Man, where all are you spreading? In terms of geography, which countries are you likely to focus on apart from India?
Right. So we have been evaluating US, UK, and Southeast Asia, primarily these three. There are other small ones as well, but given these three kind of seems to be the larger markets to focus on, we are getting started with Southeast Asia, already kind of creating that playbook, which will be able to execute right from the first quarter of 2022. But the next set of steps would be to look forward to the US and UK, where the lending processes are much more tighter, regulations and many more compliances are there around collections as well. That's what we will be looking forward to, kind of bringing such solutions to the platform as well. And in fact, such good practices which may be outside India, like in the in US and UK, we could be able to bring that to the Indian market as well, where it helps shape the collections and the lending format, and take those learning, spread it across the globe. That would be the way we look forward to doing that.
So, how many people are employed with the company at the moment?
So currently we have about 200 plus folks, and most of it have been hired during the COVID. So we recently opened up our office in Noida again. I think we were pre-COVID, we were just 10 people. Today we stand 200 plus is the strength. And given that all of them had kind of joined us over Zoom or over different Google Meets call, now it's very, very kind of enthusiastic to see young people kind of coming together in office and working with all the enthusiasm, figuring out the solutions from the first principles, looking just at the complex set of problems there in the market.
So I thought only GCC was exploding, but you've gone from 10 people to 200 people in 1.5 years. I mean, that's a fabulous one. So from your batch, how many people have gone on to their own startups, and how many people have gone to US? How many people have taken up jobs? Any idea?
So many people from my batch itself, from computer science batch itself, has gone to the likes of Facebook, Google as well. Many of these companies they have joined. If you talk about startups and who have kind of started up a company of their own, most of it are in India and Singapore. I'm not aware if there are any in US, but definitely in India and Singapore, and they have been trying to solve the problems in different spaces. One kind of has been kind of building a product for the restaurants or for the food industry, where a platform could be used, or digitalization of all these food ordering businesses, where the restaurants could be able to deploy a platform and manage all of their maybe different table ordering or online orders which they receive onto from one single platform. There are other platforms which are digitizing the rural India, the agricultural part, where they have been kind of trying to focus that. There is third product which I'm aware about. They are on the conversational analytics side, where many of these conversations which are now happening over Zoom, Google Meets, they're able to record, draw sense of it, try to improve and add many more value additions of many different features, or many different ways they could be able to improve those conversations and conversions of the clients.
So you went on to go for your own startup. Was it passion? Was it to prove yourself, or what was the driver?
Right, Pradeep. So I think I started myself in third year first. The first instance when I kind of wanted to look forward to kind of doing something of my own. That was during my third year. Had built a kind of website and thought of a product which we could be able to scale. Was in the advertisement business, where offline advertisement has still been a process which is not digitized. By digitized, I mean it's not managed. It's still that you need to call someone over the phone to see where you could be able to list those. There are not proper industries they're not proper companies who are able to manage this or digitize this in proper shapes and formats. That was an opportunity I could look at, but given that it was very operational heavy, very, very tough to manage with academics there and still there to be completed. So thought of kind of taking that up later on. Started my journey with 1mg, though was very, very much interested about the fintech segment, the fintech boom, which was there in India all around 2016, 17, and in fact, much before that. was very interested in kind of getting into that space, but saw 1mg as an opportunity to learn skills. So where I could be able to sharpen how to build a product in reality than those assignments we would be getting during our college days. So that was the opportunity I took up, spent about 3 years with them, saw the company grow from 1 to 10 journey, and then took off from 1mg. In fact, the founders of 1mg has invested in us, given the faith and the trust I have been kind of able to build with them, and continue the journey right from there. Wanted to kind of build that product right from start, and finally taking it off, and now building it gives a lot of the achievement sense of work which has been going great, and would love to keep doing so in the future as well.
So, what do you see as opportunities or constraints in building up your startup or scaling up your startup at this particular point in time? Do you find the ecosystem is supportive, or are you battling it all the time? So, what is the state of play?
Yeah, so I would first very much be thankful to the IITD kind of alumni group, because we have been able to interact many of those IITD people, and believe me, whenever we contact and mention that I'm also from IITD or you guys are also from IITD, they do ask for our hostels. So okay, which hostel you are, and that's the first question which comes up, and then we are able to much more connect from that. Thereon, we kind of take the proper helps, and they are very much open to help the guys whenever they see coming from the alum group. And I think that has been the good part, connecting to the rest of the, given that we are very young, we might not be having our hands or our connects to those larger groups, but it's a slow process, but definitely the alum groups has been making it, or bringing or acting like a catalyst there, where speeding up the growth for us. The harder part, I would say, is that finding the right set of people who could be able to kind of come up, join us, grow at a pace which we want to. I mean, we have been able to do very, very aggressively good, but still hiring is something which we still needs to be solved, where during our days in the initial, during COVID period being there, not in person interaction, it was very tough to hire people. But given that we solved it, we cracked the kind of problem statement, have been able to kind of justify to the required set of people we needed to scale to what we are today. And looking forward to do it at a global scale would require a lot more set of barriers and challenges. From an Indian perspective, it was much relatively easier, but seeing at the global level, it would be kind of pretty tough, and that we are kind of getting our hands ready to jump on, and would love to solve that problem as well.
So, what is the value proposition that you would like to have or see from IIT Delhi Alumni Association or from GCC?
Right. So I think Pradeep, it's one set of requirement would be, or maybe some would love to see, is that there are different groups which are of different batches. I mean, I would understand that. I mean, Facebook, WhatsApp now has become a norm where people are creating groups, people are creating very much contactable, where I could be able to drop a message of what help is needed. And definitely, I mean, there would be 2 or 3 people from that group reaching out, and they could be able to help us with maybe the problem statement we are kind of facing at that point of time. But for the larger ones, where we later realize many people we might take a help, we didn't even knew that this person belongs to the same community, and we are not able to reach out to them. That group would be able to kind of solve this reachability problem, or this would make it easier for us to reach out to those folks, where they could be able to open the doors for us, at least listen to the kind of product or the value add we are kind of trying to bring, and that gives us a lot of comfort there, that okay, we have reached, now the entire task is on us. We should be able to kind of do good, and kind of try to convert that. But yeah, I mean, it's very hard to still reach out to many people, but kind of a groupism or a group set of people would be created that might be able to help us do the right thing there.
So, in other words, what you are saying is networking and mentoring are 2 elements which would kind of really appeal to you or people in your profile.
Right, Pradeep. I think, yeah, well, many people, I think we may learn from. I mean, we definitely would look up to them from the industries. They have been there in the industry for so long. We could definitely take their heads on. And in terms of a set of challenging problems out there in the market, we could look up to related to the domain, and definitely from the first principles, figure out the solutions for that as well.
Sure. But remember, at the end of the day, IITDA or GCC is but a platform. And it is really how we grow this platform and how we also give back to the platform is what will really define success for the platform. But on that note, it has been absolutely wonderful to have this chat with you. I'm delighted to see that you saw an opportunity in the marketplace and how you have built up a business around that and how you are scaling it up now at a global level. So I wish you all the very, very best, and I will touch base with you, in a couple of days or in a week or so to see that how, we can get you more engaged, because you see, end of the day, we've got alumni right from 1966 batch onwards, and there are people, I know there are enough kind of opportunities both backwards and forwards. So with that, let's give a big round of applause to Anand. And
thank you, Pradeep.
We come to the end of our session today. It has gone above time, but I have let it go above time purely because the discussion has been at a different level altogether today. So with that, please, thank you all so much for joining in. And this is Pradeep from Sydney saying bye. Have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, night, whatever it is in your part of the day. And till next Saturday, and we've got yet another fabulous, interesting story coming up next Saturday. Take care. Bye for now.